Can you believe that in this day and age, Muslim scholars are still blaming the shaitan for the effects of hormones on women during the menstruation? So I posted a video yesterday in which I shared my thoughts on a clip of a particular speaker, and it caused a lot of mixed reactions. Quite a few people, in his defense, accused me of not having put up the full clip and for taking out of context. So I thought it'd be a good idea to put the whole clip up for clarity and context. I just want to make it clear at this point that I have nothing personally against the Sheikh. I think he's a nice person and I think his intentions are pure, but it's the views and ideas that I find problematic and harmful in this clip. So let's go through it.
الإمام أبو عبد الله القرطبي has a kitab called الجامع لأحكام القرآن. الجامع لأحكام القرآن, where he talks about the tafsir of the Quran. And Imam al-Qurtubi is a ma'ruf, well-known Imam. He mentioned something very powerful. And the shaitan, the jinn, the person he looks for the most is the women, okay? Especially at the time when they're on their menstruation. The women's iman is slightly low.
So the Sheikh begins by mentioning Imam Qurtubi, saying that Imam Qurtubi says something powerful. My first question would be, what makes it so powerful? Whether right or wrong, it was just the opinion of a man. Why do we treat the words and opinions of past scholars, or any scholars for that matter, as if it's revelation, as if it's something astounding? It reminds me of the verse in the Quran where Allah warns the Jews and the Christians for taking their monks and rabbis as lords besides Allah. But there's a reason why speakers do this. It's so that they can influence their listeners to accept their point through emotional manipulation rather than intellectual merit. And a lot of Islam is taught in this way, and personally, I don't think it's a good thing. He goes on to say that the people the shaitan seeks the most are women, especially women who are menstruating. Now, this isn't his opinion, granted, but he believes it, and that's why he's promoting it. But to make a statement establishing a reality or making a ruling based on something that's not concrete or known is a silly thing to do. But it becomes especially dangerous when there are practical implications. An extreme example of this was when ISIS took over Iraq and Syria. And they took some of the signs of the hour and they interpreted those signs to fit their reality. As a result, they killed, oppressed, and took slaves, as well as committing many other crimes. But they believed that they were a part of these signs coming into fruition. So you see, when you take certain ideas and you make those ideas reality, if they're not actual reality, some of them can have really negative and damaging consequences. So this issue of shaitan targeting women, and women who are menstruating specifically, is it something we can deduce from the Quran? Is it something that we explicitly know to be true? No. So why would we mention it as if it's an established reality? Now, the defense a lot of people are putting forward is that women are more susceptible to evil because they're not spiritually pure and because they're not praying and doing adhkar during their menstruation. But in that case, how would you explain all the other Muslims who aren't praying, who are impure, and don't behave the way women behave on their menstruation? How would you explain other women who are impure, who are not praying, who are just behaving normally, as opposed to women who are on their menstruation behaving erratically? Surely they'd both be equally susceptible to shaitan. Or perhaps it's got nothing to do with the shaitan and it's purely hormones. Surely the way menstruating women do devilish things because they're vulnerable to shaitan, others who are impure and not worshipping should behave similarly. Now, I get that in the past they didn't understand hormones, they didn't understand chemicals, so they explained menstrual behavior as jinn or shaitan influence. But to think this now in light of what we actually know and can be proved is foolish and embarrassing. We laugh at other people because of their superstitious beliefs, yet we can't see that so many of our own beliefs are no different. Now, to suggest that this is a valid view is to suggest that Allah has fashioned women by design to be more susceptible to shaitan and to evil. Women go through menstruation, pregnancy, postpartum, and menopause, all of which cause hormonal imbalance and have heavy effects emotionally. Are you saying that God created women at such a disadvantage that for 1/3 of their lives, they are more vulnerable to shaitan? And why don't men have such a disadvantage? Does this sound like a just God to you?
And it's well known that the women a lot of the times are the ones that are the fastest in getting upset about the qada and the qadar if it doesn't happen the way that they like. It's known, it's a reality. Women generally are more in feeling against the qada and the qadar than men.
Okay, so now he's saying that it's well known, it's an established reality that women are the fastest in getting upset about qada wal qadr. My question will be, well known by whom exactly? Who established this fact? First off, this is just a baseless misogynistic take. Secondly, this is supposed to be a sheikh or a student of knowledge who is just accepting what other people are saying without testing its truthfulness. There's no evidence suggesting that women are more against qada wal qadr than men are. That's just something from your own anecdotal experience, but now you're pushing it forward as if it's an objective reality. But the whole point of being learned is to not to have to rely on other people, is to avoid dogma. Yet he's spreading this falsity as if it's an absolute truth. If our teachers can't tell the difference between an opinion and a fact, then what chance do their followers and students have? But what the Sheikh really means when he says that women are more unwilling to accept qadr is basically that men make decisions, and these decisions often cause pain and hardship for women. And because women get upset at the leadership of men and their bad decisions, that they are against qadr. They're not against qadr. They're just against the reality that the men are creating for them. It's the men's bad decisions that they're against. And again, this is just misogyny covered up with religion.
Ibn Abdullah al-Qurtubi mentioned he benefits from the women when they're on their menstruation. So from the men and women, he benefits more from the women, especially when they're on their menstruation.
So the devil benefits more from women than men, especially women who are on their menstruation. So my question would be, how exactly does the devil benefit? What evil or devil's work do you see coming from women who are on their period, other than heightened emotions? Do you see them committing murder, rape, burglaries? No. Despite being the favorites of the shaitan and vulnerable to their influence, how is it that it's still men who commit all the most heinous crimes? What's the worst menstruating women do? Annoy their husbands maybe? Get a little more emotional than usual? Are you really going to buy the argument that women are the devil's prey of choice and that they are the ones who are affected more, and the shaitan likes to go to them more during their menses, when it's the men who commit all the most heinous sins?
Who is the one that is in the hellfire the most? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Uritu an-nara fa idha aktharu ahliha an-nisa." Bukhari Muslim both narrated.
He mentioned who are the majority dwellers of hellfire, and he's referring to the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, which says that the Prophet looked into hell and he saw the majority of its inhabitants were women because they were ungrateful to their husbands. I'm not going to speak too much about this because I've made a separate video about that, and I've explained why this hadith doesn't make sense if taken literally and therefore needs to be rejected or reinterpreted. But in short, it promotes a misogynistic attitude and a way to control women's behavior.
So that's why I want to direct my advice more to the sisters. Sisters, it's a well-documented fact that the magicians are more in women than they are in men. فَعَلَى النِّسَاءِ يَتَّقِينَ اللَّهَ, that the women should fear Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. A lot of women, they are either magicians or they go to a magician, and the majority of ones who go to magicians to get magic is women. فَعَلَى النِّسَاءِ أَن يَتَّقِينَ اللَّهَ, fear Allah, sisters.
So the final point he makes is another of his unfounded realities. It's a well-documented fact that more women are magicians than men, and that more women go to magicians than men do. So I want to know, who conducted this survey or study? When was the latest research done? How did you establish this documented reality? Wallahi, it's so harmful to make stuff like this up, because it doesn't just strip away any credibility from the person who's saying it, but it has practical implications. It shapes and molds the attitudes that we have towards women in a very negative way, and it's just not true. Now, the number one counter argument from people who disagree with me will be, what credentials do you have to disagree with him? They can't respond to my points, so they're going to try and discredit me, which is fine. I'm not saying I've got any credentials. But the thing is, I'm not claiming to be a scholar, nor am I preaching or teaching Islam. I'm merely pointing out the incoherence, fallacies, and contradictions in this clip. And all you need to do that is logic and a functioning brain. But if I'm wrong, please correct me. I'm genuinely open to being corrected and learning. And so I just want to finish with why I find this so concerning. And it's twofold. The first reason is that we as an ummah are intellectually stuck in the medieval times. It keeps us trapped in a place where we reject actual reality in place of people's baseless and made up opinions. And number two, and more significantly, because it actually causes real harm to women by planting misogynistic beliefs and attitudes which lead to oppression in many different forms. So as you can see, the whole clip and every point made in it is not helpful knowledge, but rather harmful misogyny and superstition, disguised as religion, to keep women in their place and further establish man's authority over them. And this, my brothers and sisters, is the reality of our ummah. While the world is developing AI, flying cars, and space tourism, our scholars are still blaming shaitan for the effects of hormones on women during their menstruation.